had been living on the space station for 8 months. The station was called Sigma-7, and it floated in the cold darkness between Earth and the outer colonies. He worked as an engineer there, fixing broken machines and keeping the power systems running. It was lonely work, but he liked it. The stars outside his window never judged him, and the machines never complained. He was eating lunch alone in the food court when he first saw her. She stood near the big windows that looked out into space. Her skin was pale blue, like ice on a winter morning. Her hair was silver and fell down her back like water. Her eyes were the strangest part. They were silver too, and they seemed to glow softly in the station's artificial light. She was watching the human traders walk past, and there was something in her face that looked like wonder. Knew what she was. Everyone on the station knew about the. They were famous across the galaxy. They were artists, poets, and dreamers. Their home planet was covered in crystal gardens that sang when the wind blew through them. They had no army. They had no weapons. In all of recorded history, they had never fought a war. The other alien species called them the peaceful ones, and humanity had welcomed them as friends. Went back to eating his rice. He did not expect her to walk over to his table. "May I sit with you?" she asked. Her voice was soft and musical, and she spoke in Korean, perfect Korean without any accent at all. Was so surprised that he just nodded. She sat down across from him and smiled. Her smile was gentle, like a mother looking at a sleeping child. "My name is Lyra," she said. "I have been studying your language for 6 months. I wanted to learn it because I find humans very interesting." "Your Korean is amazing," said. He felt his face getting warm. No one had spoken Korean to him in months. Everyone on the station used the common galactic language. "Why did you choose Korean?" "Because it sounds like music to me," Lyra said. "Your language has a rhythm that reminds me of the songs we sing on my world." They talked for 3 hours. Lyra asked him about Earth. She wanted to know about the oceans, how they moved and crashed against the land. She wanted to know about the seasons, how the leaves changed color and fell from the trees. She wanted to know about the food, and found himself describing his mother's kimchi in so much detail that he made himself hungry again. Lyra listened to everything with wide, shining eyes. She laughed at his jokes. She touched his hand when he talked about missing his family. She was warm and kind and curious, and felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt seen. "I have something I want to show you," Lyra said when the food court began to empty. "I have art from my world on my ship, real crystal sculptures. They are very beautiful. Would you like to see them?" Thought about it. His shift was over. He had nothing waiting for him in his small room except a cold bed and a video call with his sister that he was too tired to make. And Lyra was looking at him with those silver eyes, and she seemed so genuine, so harmless. He remembered something then. A conversation with his sister from many months ago before he left Earth. Was a scientist who studied alien life. She was smart in ways that would never be. "Be careful out there," she had told him. "The galaxy is not as safe as it looks." "They are peaceful," had said. "Everyone knows that." Had shaken her head. Her face was serious. "No species survives in the void of space without teeth. Some just hide them better than others." Now, sitting across from Lyra, pushed that memory away. Was always worried about things. She saw danger everywhere. But Lyra was just an artist who wanted to share her culture. What could possibly be dangerous about looking at some sculptures? "I would love to see them," said. Lyra's smile grew wider. Something flickered in her silver eyes, but it was gone so fast that thought he had imagined it. They walked together through the station, past the trading halls and the repair bays, until they reached the docking area where private ships were connected to Sigma-7. Lyra's ship was small and elegant. Its hull was made of something that looked like crystal, and it caught the light in ways that made it seem alive. "Welcome to my home," Lyra said as the door opened. Stepped inside. The interior was even more beautiful than the outside. The walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft colors. Strange plants grew in corners, their leaves shaped like stars. Everything smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. "This is incredible," said. He walked forward, looking at everything with amazement. Behind him, he heard the door close. He heard it lock. "Yes," Lyra said. Her voice was different now. The warmth was gone. "It is incredible what beauty can make people forget. How easily they walk into cages when the bars are made of crystal." Turned around. Lyra was still smiling, but her eyes had changed. They were cold now, cold and hungry, like a predator that had finally caught its prey. "What is this?" asked. His heart began to beat faster. "This," Lyra said softly, "is the beginning of your new life. Welcome to the collective, little human. You belong to us now." The beautiful walls suddenly felt like a tomb. Ran to the door. He pushed against it, hit it with his fists, but it did not move. The crystal was harder than steel. His hands hurt from hitting it, but the door stayed closed. "There is no point in that," Lyra said behind him. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "That door will not open until I want it to open, and I do not want it to open." Turned around. His chest was tight with fear, but he tried to keep his face steady. He was an engineer. He solved problems. He needed to think clearly. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Lyra walked toward him slowly. Her movements were graceful, like a dancer, but now saw something else in the way she moved. It was the smooth, patient walk of a hunter who knew its prey could not escape. "I want what my people have always wanted," Lyra said. "We want your mind, your memories, your dreams, your pain, your joy, everything that makes you who you are." She stopped a few steps away from him. The soft light from the crystal walls made her blue skin glow. "They are artists," she continued. "The greatest artists in the galaxy, but art needs material. A painter needs paint. A sculptor needs stone. And we need emotion, raw, living emotion from thinking beings." "Felt cold, you eat emotions." "We harvest them," Lyra corrected. "Slowly, over many years. A good host can provide material for decades if we are careful. Your fear right now is already feeding me. I can taste it. It is sharp like metal, very good quality." She closed her eyes for a moment, and something like pleasure crossed her face. When she opened her eyes again, she was smiling. "Humans are special," she said. "We have harvested many species over the years, thousands of worlds, millions of hosts, but humans are different. Your emotions are so strong, so deep, so complex. One human can provide more material than 10 hosts from other species." His mind was racing. They had no military because they did not need one. They did not fight wars because they did not need to fight. They simply invited their enemies into cages made of beauty and kind words. "The other species," said slowly, "the ones who disappeared, the ones the history books say died out, you took them." "Some of them," Lyra admitted. "Others simply became too broken to produce good material anymore. Art requires fresh sources." She walked past him, trailing her fingers along the crystal wall. The wall hummed at her touch. "You should feel honored," she said. "Your suffering will become poetry that lasts for 1,000 years. Your memories will become songs that entire worlds will weep to. Is that not a beautiful fate, to become art?" Thought about his sister. She had been right. She had always been right. He thought about his mother on Earth, waiting for his video calls. He thought about Captain, his boss on the station, who had become like a father to him over the past months. None of them knew where he was. None of them would find him in time. "How long?" he asked. His voice was steady, but inside he was screaming. "How long does it take?" "The harvesting, it depends on the host. Some last 10 years, some last 50. The ones who fight tend to produce the best material, but they also burn out faster." Lyra looked at him with curiosity. "I wonder how long you will last. You seem strong." Looked around the room. There were no weapons. There was nothing he could use to force the door open. Even if he attacked Lyra, what good would it do? She controlled the ship. She controlled everything. But as he looked, he noticed something. The ship's walls were crystal, yes, but they also had systems running through them. Power lines, data cables. The ship was technology just like any other ship. Different technology, but still technology. He was an engineer. He understood technology. "What are you thinking?" Lyra asked. She was watching him with those cold silver eyes. "I can feel your emotions changing. The fear is still there, but something else is growing, something I do not recognize." Forced himself to relax, he let his shoulders drop. He lowered his head in what he hoped looked like defeat. "I am thinking," he said slowly, "that there is no escape, that I should accept my fate." Lyra smiled. It was the gentle smile she had worn in the food court, but now saw the cruelty hiding beneath it. "That is wise," she said. "Acceptance makes the process easier for both of us." "Can I at least look around?" asked. "If this is my new home, I want to understand it. I am an engineer. I like to know how things work." Lyra considered this. He could feel her searching his emotions, trying to find deception. He thought about giving up. He thought about never seeing Earth again. He let the sadness fill him, and he felt her drink it in. "Yes," she finally said, "you may look. There is nothing here that can help you escape. The ship responds only to me." Nodded and began to walk around the room. He touched the walls. He studied the way the light moved through the crystal. He asked Lyra questions about how things worked, and she answered with the pride of someone showing off her home. She thought she was watching him accept his fate. She did not realize she was teaching him how to destroy her. Deep inside, beneath the fear and sadness that Lyra was feeding on, something else was growing in. It was small and quiet, and he kept it hidden in the darkest part of his heart where she could not see it. It was hope, and it tasted like fire. 3 days passed inside the crystal ship. Lyra fed on some emotions slowly, carefully, the way a person might drink expensive wine. She seemed to enjoy his fear most of all. Every time he thought about never seeing Earth again, she would close her eyes and smile. Every time he remembered his mother's face, she would sigh with pleasure. But was learning. He watched how the ship worked. He asked questions that seemed harmless. He touched the walls and felt the energy moving through them. The crystal technology was different from human technology, but it still followed rules. Power needed to flow somewhere. Data needed to travel through channels. Every system had weaknesses, even beautiful ones. On the 4th day, Lyra made a mistake. She showed him the connection chamber. It was a small room in the center of the ship. The walls were covered with crystals that pulsed with light. In the middle of the room was a chair made of the same living crystal as everything else. "This is where the deep harvesting happens," Lyra explained. "When a host sits in this chair, I can connect directly to their mind. I can take memories, emotions, dreams, everything." She touched the chair lovingly. "Some hosts sit here willingly after a few weeks. The connection can feel good if you stop fighting it. It is like falling asleep, like sinking into warm water." Looked at the chair. He looked at the crystals on the walls. He saw the power lines running beneath them, feeding energy into the connection system. "What happens if someone sits there and fights?" he asked. Lyra laughed softly. "No one fights for long. The connection is too strong. They have used this technology for 10,000 years. Every species breaks eventually." "Every species," repeated. "But not humans. You said humans are new to you." Lyra's smile faded slightly. "That is true. You are our first human host, but you will break like all the others. Your species is young. You have not learned to protect your minds the way older species have." Nodded slowly as if he accepted this, but inside something was burning. He thought about human history. He thought about all the times his species should have died but did not. Ice ages that froze the world, plagues that killed millions, wars that burned cities to ash. And every time humans had survived, not because they were the strongest but because they refused to give up. They had never met anything like that before. "I want to try the chair," said suddenly. Lyra looked surprised. "You want to connect willingly already?" "I want to understand what is going to happen to me," said. He kept his voice tired and defeated. "If this is my fate, I want to face it." Lyra studied him for a long moment. He could feel her searching his emotions again. He let her find acceptance. He let her find surrender. He buried everything else deep, deep down where she could not reach. "Very well," she said. "Sit." Sat in the crystal chair. It was warm against his back, and he could feel it beginning to connect to his mind. It was a strange feeling, like fingers pressing gently against the inside of his skull. Lyra sat in front of him. Her silver eyes began to glow brighter as she activated the connection. "Relax," she whispered. "Let me in, show me your memories, show me your pain, show me everything." The connection opened. For a moment felt her inside his mind. She moved through his thoughts like a ghost, touching his memories, tasting his emotions. She found his fear and drank it. She found his loneliness and savored it. Then she found something else. She found his rage. Had been hiding it for 4 days. Every time she fed on his fear, he had pushed his anger deeper. Every time she smiled at his suffering, he had buried his hatred further down. Now he released it all at once. It was like a fire exploding through the connection. Lyra screamed. She tried to pull away, but the connection worked both ways. She had opened a door into his mind, but now he was pushing through it into hers. He showed her everything. He showed her human history, wars that lasted 100 years, soldiers who fought until their last breath, people who crawled through deserts without water and refused to die. He showed her the survivors of plagues, the builders of cities, the explorers who crossed oceans without knowing what waited on the other side. He showed her what humans did when they were afraid. They did not break, they fought harder. Lyra was screaming now, trying to escape the chair, but grabbed her wrists and held her in place. "You wanted to taste human emotion," he said through gritted teeth. "So taste this. This is what we are. This is what you tried to harvest." He pushed harder. He showed her his mother's face, and he showed her the love he felt, burning like the sun. He showed her warnings, and he showed her the regret that cut like a knife. He showed her his own stubbornness, his refusal to accept defeat, his absolute determination to survive. The crystals on the walls began to crack. The light inside them flickered and died. Lyra's blue skin was turning pale, and her silver eyes were wide with something she had never felt before. Fear, real fear, the fear of prey facing a predator. "You thought we were soft," said. "You thought we were easy. You looked at our smiles and saw weakness." He leaned close to her face. "You should have looked at our history." Lyra collapsed, the connection shattered, the crystal chair went dark. Stood up slowly. His whole body was shaking. His head hurt like someone had driven nails into it, but he was alive, and he was free. The door to the connection chamber was open now. The ship systems were failing all around him, and Lyra lay on the floor, whimpering in a language he did not understand. He had won, but he was not finished yet. Stood over Lyra's shaking body and considered killing her. It would be easy. She was weak now, broken by the flood of human emotion that her mind could not process. One quick blow and it would be over. Justice for all the species she had helped destroy. Justice for all the victims who had sat in that chair before him. But killing her would only end one predator. The collective was still out there. Thousands of ships, millions of her kind. They would come looking for their lost hunter, and they would find new victims to replace him. Needed to send a bigger message. He walked through the failing ship, stepping over cracked crystals and dead lights. The damage from his mental attack had spread through the whole vessel. Systems that had hummed with life were now silent. The beautiful walls had gone dark. He found what he was looking for in a room near the front of the ship, a communication system. The crystals here were still glowing faintly, still connected to something larger. Lyra had called it the collective network. It linked all ships together, letting them share thoughts and feelings across the stars. Sat down in front of it. He placed his hands on the crystal's surface and felt it respond to his touch. The connection was still there, damaged but working. He could feel thousands of minds at the other end, going about their business, hunting their prey, making their art. They had no idea what was coming. "Hello," said out loud. His voice echoed strangely through the crystal network. "My name is, I am a human from Earth, and I have a message for the collective." He felt their attention turn toward him. Thousands of minds, curious and hungry. They had never heard a human voice on their network before. They reached toward him, ready to taste his emotions, ready to harvest this new source. Smiled, and he opened the doors to his memory. He showed them Earth. He showed them the ice ages, when glaciers covered the world and his ancestors huddled in caves, starving and freezing. He showed them how those ancestors refused to die, how they learned to make fire, how they made clothes from animal skins, how they painted beautiful pictures on cave walls even while death waited outside. He showed them the plagues, the Black Death that killed half of Europe, the people who buried their families and then went back to work, the doctors who studied the sick, knowing they would catch the disease themselves, the cities that burned their dead and then rebuilt. He showed them the wars, soldiers charging into certain death because their friends were beside them, cities bombed to rubble that rose again within a generation, enemies who became allies, wounds that healed into scars and scars that became stories. He showed them Hiroshima, a city destroyed in a single flash of light, and then he showed them Hiroshima today, a living city full of people, full of hope, a monument to what humans could survive. He showed them the small things too, a mother working 3 jobs so her children could go to school, a father teaching his son to ride a bicycle, friends laughing together over cheap food, lovers holding hands on a rainy day. He showed them all of it, the violence and the tenderness, the cruelty and the kindness, the terrible, beautiful, unstoppable force that was humanity. And then he showed them what happened when you try to break a human. He showed them his own rage, his determination, his refusal to become prey. He showed them Lyra, lying broken on the floor of her own ship, defeated by a single human engineer who should have been helpless. The collective screamed. They tried to disconnect. They tried to close the network, but held on. 4 days of hidden anger gave him strength he did not know he had. He forced them to see. He forced them to feel. For 10,000 years, they had harvested emotion from other species. They had tasted fear and despair and hopelessness. They had grown fat on the suffering of others. Now they tasted human defiance, and it burned them. Across the galaxy, ships went dark. Their beautiful crystal walls cracked. Their hunters collapsed, overwhelmed by emotions they could not process. They had evolved to feed on prey. They had no defense against something that fought back. Held the connection for as long as he could. When he finally let go, his nose was bleeding and his vision was blurred. He slumped against the communication console, exhausted in a way he had never felt before. But it was done. He had sent a message that they would never forget. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not soft. Humanity was something new in the galaxy, something the old predators had never faced before. Found the ship's distress beacon and activated it. Then he sat down with his back against the cold crystal wall and waited for rescue. 12 hours later, Captain's rescue ship connected to the drifting vessel. They found sitting in the dark, calm and quiet, watching the stars through a cracked window. They found Lyra curled in a corner, whimpering in a language no translator could understand. "What happened here?" asked, looking around at the destroyed ship. Thought for a moment. How could he explain? How could he describe what he had done and what it meant? "I sent a message," he said finally, and I think they received it." Captain stared at him for a long moment. Then he put his hand on shoulder. "Let's go home," he said. Nodded, but as they walked toward the rescue ship, he looked back at Lyra one last time. She was still shaking. She would probably never stop. He felt no pity, only tired satisfaction. The hunters had learned what it meant to be hunted. 6 months passed. Stood in a great hall made of white stone and blue light. This was the Galactic Council Chamber, where representatives from 100 different species gathered to discuss matters that affected the whole galaxy. He had never imagined standing here. He was just an engineer. He fixed machines. He was not a diplomat or a soldier or a hero. But the galaxy had decided he was something more. The council chamber was full. Representatives from dozens of worlds watched him with eyes of every color and shape. Some looked like humans. Some looked like nothing he had ever seen before. They all had one thing in common. They were afraid. Not of him, of what he represented. The Speaker of the Council, a tall being with skin and too many eyes, leaned forward on its platform. "The collective has formally requested non-contact status with humanity," it said. Its voice echoed through the chamber. "This is the first time in 10,000 years that they have requested such a thing. They are afraid of you." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Could feel them staring at him, trying to understand. They had been feared across the galaxy. They had harvested hundreds of species. They had turned entire civilizations into sources of art. And now they were hiding from one small, young species that had only been in space for a few centuries. "What did you do to them?" the speaker asked. Thought about the question carefully. He thought about who had called him crying after she heard the news. She kept saying she was sorry for being right, which made no sense, but he understood what she meant. He thought about his mother, who had held him for an hour when he finally returned to Earth and had not said a single word. He thought about Lyra. She was still alive, kept in a special medical facility on a neutral world. The doctors said her mind was damaged. She could not stop feeling human emotions now. They leaked through the connection had forced on her, playing over and over like a song stuck in her head. Some called it justice, some called it cruelty, was not sure what he called it. "I showed them what we are," he finally said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the silent chamber. "Not our technology, not our weapons, not our ships or our numbers, just us. The thing that survives, the thing that does not stop." The speaker's many eyes blinked slowly. "They have hunted for 10,000 years. They have broken species far older and more powerful than humanity. What makes you different?" Smiled. It was not a happy smile. "The feed on emotion," he said. "They harvest fear and pain and despair. They are very good at finding those things, but they never encountered a species that uses those feelings as fuel instead of breaking under them." He paused, thinking about how to explain. "When a human is afraid, we do not become weak. We become dangerous. When we are in pain, we do not give up. We get angry. When we despair, we do not accept death. We fight harder." He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes from 100 worlds. They tried to harvest our suffering. Instead, they got our stubbornness, and it poisoned them. The chamber was completely silent. "You could destroy them," the speaker said slowly. "With what you know, with what you did, humanity could end the threat forever." Shook his head. "We could, but we will not. To know what we are now, that is enough. They will leave us alone, and we will leave them alone. There has been enough pain." More murmurs. Some of the representatives looked relieved. Others looked disappointed. A few looked at with new eyes, seeing something they had not noticed before. The speaker nodded slowly. "The council accepts the request. Non-contact status between the collective and humanity is now in effect." It paused. "And the council formally welcomes humanity as a protected species of the first rank." Protected species. It meant that other predator races would think twice before hunting humans. It meant that humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through war, not through conquest, through the simple act of refusing to break, bowed to the council, and walked out of the chamber. 1 week later, he was back on Sigma 7. Captain had offered him a promotion, a better position, even a command of his own. Had refused all of it. He just wanted to fix machines again. He wanted to be normal. But he knew he would never be completely normal again. Late at night, when the station was quiet and the stars shone cold outside his window, sometimes thought about Lyra. He thought about her smile in the food court. He thought about her gentle voice speaking perfect Korean. He thought about how easily he had trusted her. And he thought about what she had seen in him at the end, the fear in her silver eyes, the moment she realized she had invited a monster into her home, thinking it was just a man. The galaxy was full of predators, beings that hunted and harvested and consumed. They saw humanity and thought they saw prey, soft creatures with short lives and gentle smiles. They did not see the ice ages humanity had survived, the plagues, the wars, the countless times the species should have died but refused. They looked at human kindness and saw weakness. That was their mistake. Looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there they were hiding. Somewhere out there, other predators were watching humanity and wondering if the stories were true. Let them wonder. Let them fear. Let them look at human smiles and remember what happened to them when they stopped looking at human history. Humanity was not blameless. That was the point. That was the weapon. And was going back to fixing machines because that was what humans did. They broke things, they fixed things, they survived. Always they survived.